if you look at any organization as a pyramid, and you are at the top of the pyramid as the leader of that organization, you have to recognize that there is one you and there are a lot of other people in the organization. And as soon as you express an idea or you agree that you're going to develop an idea, there are going to be many more people who will have many more ideas about how that can be moved forward than you alone could have. And so if you listen to all of those people who have a response to what you are asking them to do, you're probably going to get a much richer outcome, and you're going to be able to execute it much better because it's their idea. So when you finally choose what you want to do, you don't have to then spend time convincing people that that is what you need to do. And what I think people often confuse in terms of communication is, if I speak for a long time and if I give a speech and if I'm charismatic as a speaker and so on and so forth, I'm communicating. And actually, when I'm doing all of that, I'm not listening. And if I'm not listening, I'm not really taking advantage of all the talent that is in the organization that can actually make a much bigger difference to the organization than anything that any leader could say.
I agree with that, but I think there's a part of it where it's somewhat of a U-shaped, upside down U-shaped curve where you listen more and it gets better, but if you listen too much, it starts getting a bit worse. Let me explain that. So I was, for example, writing my essay for YYGS. I wrote my essay and I took a bunch of opinions. I think 5 out of 6 people are like, change the topic. And I had to employ some of my own school of thought at that point in time. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to change the topic. I like the topic. I'm going to keep it. If I listened at that point in time, I don't know what the outcome would be, but I didn't listen and it worked out for me. So where do you think a leader should understand that, hey, these are the ideas that I'm getting? Should I employ my own idea or should I employ theirs?
So you've put your finger on the duality between clarity and listening.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am clear in where I want the organization to go, what I have really done is I've expressed the what. What I'm listening to is the how. And people who, so whereas the example you gave, people were asking you to change the what. That's not and you're right to say, this is the what I'm staying with. I'm listening to how I can make it better. And I think if quite often if you have the clarity to separate the what from the how, and when you initiate a communication, you propose to people that this is what we want to do, and you have to give them reasons. So you have to be convincing as to why this is important. But once you say that, and then you say, we need to know what is the best way to do it, that is when you get all the how ideas. And in any case, the execution is going to happen closer to the ground, closer to the customer, closer to manufacturing, and so on and so forth. And so I think it's important, if you start out in clarity, you can execute by listening to the people who are actually going to do the execution.
That makes a lot of sense. So further diving into your career in Michelin, you've worked in how many regions?
The North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, India, Middle East, and then when I was in the global business unit, I had customers in Australia. They were mining customers, so they were in South Africa, Australia, Chile, South America, so on.
And that brings the culture point up, and each region has its own cultural norms, and they find some things that are usual to be something that you might not have found usual. How did you adapt to those differences?
So one thing that is a huge benefit when you're part of a large organization is any organization ends up having its own culture, what often is referred to as company culture or corporate culture. And the assumption that I would make is that corporate culture has already been put in place. Now, the only place where I would say in my career that I had to actually participate in doing that was in the last assignment when we did Africa, India, Middle East, and actually set up a new office in Dubai, and we hired people that had never been Michelin employees before. But everywhere else that I worked prior to that, I walked into offices that had existed, that in which my predecessors had done what needed to be done to instill the Michelin culture in place. When you have that commonality of a corporate culture, then the task you have when you're looking at different geographies is to understand how the local culture fits with the company culture, and understand that, because not every local culture interprets company culture exactly the same way. And so you need to first spend time, once again, observing and listening to see how people react to these kinds of things. And it's relatively simple things like how respectful are, your corporate culture may have a certain kind of respectfulness. Is that the same thing that is displayed in every country that you have an office in? Is it exactly the same way in every market that you go to? Do you talk to customers the same way in the same markets? And I think it's important to make that distinction, because ultimately what you're selling to a customer is not just a product or a service, but you're also selling your company culture. And it's really important for you as a leader to understand how that company culture is going to be sold.